Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski. This is Two Guys on Politics, and the other guy is the outstanding reporter and columnist, Ray Hanania.
And this, hey, welcome, Bill. Thank you always for doing a great introduction. And I got to tell you, it's so much fun doing this with you. We do this every Thursday. We post it on YouTube, and we really the last two guys on politics podcast did very, very well. Hundreds and hundreds of views, lots of good comments, and of course, if anybody wants to watch our, if I know they may listen by audio podcast, but we appreciate if you want to comment. Go ahead, comment, like us or dislike us, doesn't matter. We'll always respect you. And yes, I am Ray Hanania, and this is Two Guys on Politics, October 24, 2024. It is Season 3, Episode 32. And Bill and I are going to talk about what else? The presidential election. We're about 2.5 weeks away, right?
It's only about a week and a half, isn't it? Is it 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks at least. Today's the 24th and the 31st. Yeah, it's about 1 week, 2 weeks, about 2 weeks.
2 weeks from yesterday.
2 weeks from Tuesday. You're right.
Okay.
We don't want to confuse anybody about the election, okay? Because those candidates need every vote possible. So we don't want to. Early voting is taking place and will continue until Monday, November 4th.
Have you voted yet?
Yes, I voted today, and I'm proud to say that I did a write-in vote for president.
Good.
Exercising my American right, which my dad fought for, my brother fought for, and I fought for, and a lot of Americans fought for. So it is, and everybody should vote, and however they vote doesn't matter, but everybody should be involved in voting.
Absolutely.
They were saying that the early voting has been higher in this election than it has been in other elections. I'm not quite sure what the factors are, but we've seen the reporting. If you can believe the media, which I don't always believe, but they said the races are tight, between the two of them in a lot of states, and it keeps going up and down. Today, Trump is leading in Georgia, which I believe is an important state. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Well, yes, I'm glad that you voted because according to the vice president, if Trump wins, this is the last time you'll ever have an opportunity to vote in this country.
I'm sure. Do you believe that? I mean, listen, now I know that he's petty. He says some dumb stuff sometimes. He has some good programs. But, the idea that he's some type of fascist that's going to take over the country. Yeah, he was upset with the last election and he refused to believe that he lost. That's his right as an American. I don't think he should have ever encouraged anybody to do any violence, but when I read all of his remarks and all of his statements from that week up to January 6, 2020, I didn't see him say, now I want you to go out and we're going to be violent. He said, be peaceful. I read his speech several times, but he certainly didn't respond enough to discourage what happened. I think about 1,000 of his supporters out of 30,000 who went to the Capitol, 1,000 actually broke the law and were prosecuted. But, people have the right to do what they want, but they don't have the right to engage in violence.
Yes, well, I know he's been misjudged, the poor man. But let's get into the present election. I mean, he did say when he was talking to those people who marched on the Capitol, if you want to save your country, you have to fight like hell. That's not inciting a riot or anything, though. But, you had your shot, I had my shot. Let's move on.
But wait, it is fair. Let's just talk about when he says fight like hell. If Obama had said that, or if Bill Clinton had said you have to fight like hell, nobody would have taken it as a call to arms and violence. But because Trump said it, the media turns everything he says in one direction and everything, the people they like, in another direction. So you have to take the reporters reporting with a grain of salt, sadly, because they should be providing the facts. And really the biggest disappointment and failure, I think, that we've seen is the role of the media not doing the jobs that they should be doing, and presenting facts and objective reporting. We don't get that from either side. It's hard to find a middle. I go to the BBC in London to find out what's happening in the United States.
I may have to go to the BBC to get on. You're just going on and on and on. Before I say any word, I want you to tell me again.
Yes, sir.
The vice president was on CNN, and what happened?
Yeah, Kamala Harris was on CNN, a town hall meeting, and it was just her answering questions. And I read a number of Democrats who said that she did a very poor job. David Axelrod was, critical, not mean, but that it was a lot of words, and they call it a alpha. Her I can't remember the phrase, like an alphabet. Yeah, like alphabet soup or something. She just blathers. And she was asked specific questions and had a great opportunity to answer with really good responses, but her responses just weren't that good. They're so vague. They're so general. And like I've said many times, her big problem is she comes across like she's reading headlines, not the subjects of the story. Just, I'm for abortion. I want to fight crime. Or we're going to, that Trump is going to turn this country into another fascist dictatorship. But there's never, I don't understand why she doesn't drill down and give us the facts, because she could hurt him if she did that.
I thought the best thing you told me about the CNN debate with the vice president was that she lost it. And I think you're right. I think that you are right in saying that. And I'm sure you're not the only one that said it. Now let's try to get serious on this situation.
Very hard when talking about the president's election, but go ahead.
350 million people in this country, and we wind up with these two lemons. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
It is sad, unfortunately. Is this the worst election, do you think, that you've seen in all your years? I mean, my first election was Richard M. Nixon. His re-election. That's the first time I was able to vote. And I think that was in 72, maybe?
Yeah, my first election 70. Was John F. Kennedy.
Wow.
And I voted for Richard M. Nixon.
Yeah, and I remember in elementary school, we had the big discussion about Charles Percy, the U.S. Senator from Illinois, and he won because he always looked good. He sounded good. Because they talked a lot about how Kennedy won because in that debate with Nixon, Kennedy came across very handsome, very smooth, and Nixon was sweating all the time.
Correct.
In that debate. So it isn't always issues that decides elections, is it?
Well, I think that's what Kamala, the vice president. Here, I'm going to try to be serious now.
Okay.
When the convention ended, her poll numbers were going up, up, up.
Yeah.
That to me seemed to be based upon the great smile that she has,
yes,
the great laugh that she has, and not saying anything of consequence, thereby not offending one single soul in America. Okay? Now, since that time, she has still continued not to say one single thing of where her position is, other than, she's for abortion.
Right.
On demand, 100%. That's the only position that she has taken. She hasn't taken a position on anything else. Now, because of that, her poll numbers have started going down. Now, what has also happened in the last 10 days, 2 weeks, she is beginning to talk like our man Trump. I mean, Trump said that he would like to have generals like Hitler because they were very loyal. That's all he said, okay?
Yeah.
Now she has extrapolated that to say that he wants to have generals like that so they will not pay any attention to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and simply do what he wants them to do. If he wants them to go in, and break up people having a meeting and they might be saying negative things about him, he's going to use his army for that purpose. Yeah. He is a fascist. Now, he never came close to saying anything like that. And she has said other things similar to that in the last 10 days, 2 weeks, and her numbers have continued to fall. Now, listen, there's no way that she is ever going to trash talk Trump, okay? I mean, he's the master.
Out trash talk him, you mean? Do worse than he does. But she's trying, as you point out.
Thank you for that correction, Ray. I knew you.
No, not a correction. I mean, but yeah, I know what you meant. I know exactly what you mean.
Okay. Well, trying to get back to being serious. I got to stop looking at you, Ray. Okay. Now, so by her doing that, she is bringing herself down to his level as far as the inflammatory oratory that she is putting forth. She still has not really stated any positions. People know what Trump's positions are. Most people like most of Trump's positions. They don't like him personally, but they like things he's interested in, things that he stands for. She has not told the American people what she stands for, other than the abortion issue. Now she's going after Trump, talking about him in the same way that he talked about her, the way he talked about Hillary, the way he talked about Joe Biden. It's not doing her any good. Her numbers continue to fall. As we sit here today, I believe Trump is going to be reelected president of the United States, not because he's going to win this election, but because she is going to lose this election. And I didn't think it was possible after the insurrection on January 6th that he could ever possibly be reelected president of the United States. But I believe it is going to happen. And on top of that, I believe that the U.S. Senate is going to flip to Republican.
Wow.
So he will have the presidency. He'll have the U.S. Senate. I simply hope and pray that the Democrats can hang on to the House, so that not hang on to the House, but capture the House, so that there will be some check and balance on this so-called fascist who we will have in the White House.
Well, one of the things that I hear over and over again from people is that they hate the one thing they hate about this election is the pettiness and name calling that started out mainly, that is associated with Trump, that he dropped in the beginning. When he did that debate with Biden, he was on much better, respectful terms than he normally is.
Absolutely.
And even in the weeks after, even when Kamala Harris was nominated in a secret ballot with the Democrats, they did their telephone poll. It wasn't an open primary, it was just, they just did it. And if this had been reversed, the media would have ripped that process apart, but they didn't. And it seemed like we were going to actually hear issues. But then Trump slowly reverted back after the attempted assassination. I don't know what it was, but it provoked him to go back to his name calling and trash talk and pettiness. And it's really nauseating to hear that. But he was a contrast for a while, but pretty soon she started doing the same thing. And on the CNN town hall, I mean, she kept, as you pointed out, she said that Trump's own former senior military figures in his administration have called him a fascist and claimed the former president spoke glowingly of loyalty of Hitler's Nazi generals. As you pointed out, that his comments about turning the military against enemies within, it's like she's playing up the negative. And I think if I had been her consultant, I would say, stop talking about Trump. Let people see Trump for what he is. You need to talk about the good things you want to do and sell the Americans on why those things are good. And she hasn't done that. She's focused mainly on, and I really, again, I blame the media. They've encouraged her to go after Trump because they've augmented her attacks. And it's been easier to get that reported than it is to get the substance. Nobody in the media has really said to her, how are you going to strengthen the economy? How are you going to stop crime? How are you going to improve, immigration and stop illegal aliens from entering the country? They could have done that and done her a favor, but I think the media has ended up hurting Harris a lot.
Well, I think so too. I cannot remember when the news media has been so heavily supportive of one presidential candidate. I would actually have to go back in memory to 1960, when most major newspapers in this country, and they had significant influence in those days, when they would endorse someone, it would mean something to an awful lot of people.
Yes, it would.
They were very heavily for Richard Nixon, primarily because the establishment at that time was still white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And they were concerned about the papist that was running for president in 1960. Would he take orders from the Pope, or would he do what was best for the American people? And I remember several articles in several different newspapers asking that question. The news media was all in for Nixon at the time. Not so much television. Television played a little bit straighter, but newspapers and the radio, they were all in it for Nixon. Kennedy managed to prevail anyway, but that's the last time I can ever remember the press was so strong on one side.
I don't think anybody attacked candidate Nixon for accusing the Democrats of stealing the vote, as they did in Chicago in that election. The votes were stolen. We know that. Although today they say, oh, no, votes are never stolen. No. But I had to vote, and all I had to do was sign my name, and they just compared my signature. If I want to buy alcohol, I got to show my ID. If I want to buy a gun, I got to show my ID. If I want a license, I better have an ID if the police stop me. But if I want to go vote, they don't want any IDs. They just want anybody to go vote. And it makes me feel very insecure, about all that. So I'm a little worried about this. And I think that the fact that the fact that the news media has to say that the election is tied tells me that she's losing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're exaggerating something in her favor. Right. And to say it's tied is in the hopes of getting more people out there to vote, for her. So she must be doing really bad for the media to admit that. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday, November 5th.
I listened to 2 focus groups in the last few days discussing the presidential race. And what stood out more than anything else was the people's revulsion at the way that she has been talking about Trump and talking about Republicans. She has not gained any support because of that. She has lost support of it. And a very funny thing, some of the people that were participating in the focus group were asked, well, doesn't the things that Trump say upset you? And the 3 of them that they interviewed, one was an African-American, one was a Hispanic, one was a Caucasian. They all said, no, not really. He's one of those brash New Yorkers. You know how they say things often.
Well, they expect it from him, right? They expect that from him. They didn't expect it from her.
No. I just cannot understand that she didn't have better advisors, because I think this election is being lost by her, and it's slipping away more and more each day.
Yeah, it is. And I get the feeling that, I don't have an indication of this, but there's a real potential that he could sweep the country, and her loss, and I really think she is going to lose based on what I'm seeing and hearing, and her inability to believe me, if she said something significant that I supported, and my priorities, as much as I love the Middle East and I write about the Middle East, the most important thing to me is the policies here in the U.S. I want to stop crime. I want to stop illegal aliens from entering this country. If she were to define and explain how she were going to do that, I might have voted for her. But I just couldn't get myself to vote for Trump because I felt the pettiness is not good for this country. But to see her do the same thing, I think has really hurt her. And she missed an opportunity to really redefine politics for, this country and change the direction we are headed.
Well, she did tell you what she was going to do on the border. She's going to have a comprehensive immigration reform bill.
Well, I guess that's good enough.
That should be it for you.
And that's pretty comprehensive, that one sentence.
Yes.
That's it. I told you it's going to be comprehensive. Here it is, this one single page with one sentence on it. So that's part of her problem. And I really think she missed a really huge opportunity, because even in her 3 months, had she come out with some, I just don't understand it. Why? I know that really experienced political people like Obama and the Clintons are advising her. David Axelrod, we both know. We worked with him. He covered you. He was at City Hall. He's brilliant. The guy's smart. I don't understand why they didn't sit her down and say, listen, define yourself differently from Trump. Present yourself that you're the alternative, not the same, and here's what you would do. And I'm surprised that nobody made her do that.
Well, Obama and Clinton are two of the greatest politicians that ever ran and were elected president of the United States. They knew how to campaign. They knew.
Yes, they did.
I don't understand why she didn't listen to him, but obviously she did not listen to him.
I don't think they pushed her. I think that they're offended by Trump as much as everybody, who dislikes him is. And I think that they dropped the ball too, because it isn't just her. She's only been a presidential candidate for 3 months, unlike everybody else that's been running. But I blame the people that have stood around her, and they gave her bad advice. And either that or she's not listening to him. But I think we would have heard that. Bill, I don't know anything else about the election, but one other issue I forgot I wanted to bring up was these reports in Ukraine about how North Korea is sending fighting troops to Russia to fight the war there. Isn't that an escalation of the conflict now?
It certainly is. There's no question about it. But it also shows you how bad off the Russians are when they have to accept troops from North Korea. Come on now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's, North Korea is one of those countries where it's frightening, but we did beat them, basically. Although it was a stalemate, I think, the war. Wasn't it? The Korean War?
Yes, it was a stalemate.
It was kind of a...
50-yard line.
Yeah, the 50-yard line. And those North Koreans, though, are tough. They're not very good. They're good at sacrificing themselves in numbers to stop stuff. But the fact that Russia is, I think you make a good point. It shows that his position is weakening, and maybe this is an opportunity for us to do something, to use that as a moment to change the dynamics of that. If we had a good leader, I think that they would do that, but we're not seeing anything. I think the Ukraine war is just drifting. We don't hear much about it, and nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, is anybody doing anything about the situation in the Middle East?
No, not at all. I think Secretary Blinken is probably, if he isn't an Israeli citizen, he should be definitely given citizenship after Biden leaves office, because he has not been helpful in bringing the two sides together. Every time they do, the Israelis, you got to give them credit. They're smart. They target. The technology is amazing. I don't think that being smart makes you moral, though. But they've destroyed the leadership of Hamas and Hezbollah. But is that what made those two organizations the leaders telling people what to do? Or was it the suffering and the trauma that people go through that create these leaders? Because I see new leaders cropping up every day, and I don't see an end to this conflict at all.
I think that the people, they have a cause, and the leaders simply take advantage of the cause that the people have.
Yes.
And, lead in that direction, because that's the direction the people want to go. And you can't wipe out the entire population. You have to sit down and somehow reason with these people in the Middle East to get them to stop killing themselves. But Ray, you wanted to talk about one other thing. You wanted to talk about the candidate that you voted for in this election?
Yeah, listen, Jill Stein's there's no way Jill Stein is going to get elected president. But one thing Jill Stein could do, if this could be a moment where we might see a third party get 5% of the vote because of all the lack of charisma on Harris's part, the dissatisfaction with Trump. I think there are a lot of people that just might vote for Stein just because they're tired of all the anger, the name calling, the pettiness. And I think we had 160 million votes. So if you get 5%, I think that's 5 million votes. If she can get 5 million votes, she actually, the Green Party, which once was led by Ralph Nader, the consumer advocate. I'm sure you remember him. Very smart guy who happened to be Arab American, by the way, Lebanese. If she can get 5%, they could become a real party, and they could build off of that if they were to really organize and get away from some radical views and focus more on the mainstream issues that Harris and Trump are not addressing.
I would agree with you on that, Raven. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both agree that it would be great to have three parties, not just two parties.
No question about it. No question.
And wouldn't it force two parties, if we split the vote, two parties would have to come together and compromise to run the country? I think that would be a good thing. It would force people to do the right thing sometimes. So anyway.
That's it. Just remember to vote, folks. It's very, very important you get out and vote, whoever you vote for.
Absolutely. All right, I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski. This is Two Guys on Politics.